So has United Nations failed to address major global challenges, and is there a growing chorus for reforms in global multilateral organizations, particularly from the Global South? Well, this was the major discourse in the recently concluded 9th edition of Raisina Dialogue. The multi-stakeholder cross-sectoral discussion involving heads of various states, cabinet ministers and local government officials, along with thought leaders from the private sector, from media and academia, they all deliberated upon diverse points of view to find solutions for inclusive growth. DD India's Amritpal and Jessica Taneja gets us more.
India's flagship conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics saw 2,500 participants from 115 countries address the most challenging issues facing the global economy. From engagement with the European nations on global security challenges to reinvigorating the voice of the Global South, the 9th edition of the Raisina Dialogue gave room to diverse points of view to find solutions for inclusive growth. UN's failure to address major global challenges put it in the spotlight once again, and demand for reforms in Western multilateral organizations is gaining ground.
The UN is still actually a reflection of a colonial era organization. So I think it's a great idea. I really think that posing the reform issue in terms of perpetuating a colonial era is something which we all need to think about. But what we realized was that G20 was not enough, because one part of the world with more than 50 countries had been significantly shut out, which was Africa. So if you see, in a way, we still call it G20, but it's actually become G21. And that itself, by the way, in a way, it's also a lesson to the UN that if the G20 could expand, so could the P5.
On India and China's relationship, Jaishankar said that maintaining an equilibrium would be challenging.
I think management, arriving at equilibriums, then maintaining those, refreshing those, is going to be one of the biggest challenges for both countries. The mind games which will be played would be, it's just between the two of us. There's nobody. The other 190 odd countries in the world don't exist in our relationship. Don't give another country, which is clearly a competitive country, a veto over our policy choices.
India's External Affairs Minister also spoke on Russia issue.
A lot of doors have been shut to Russia and the West. Russia is turning more to Asia or to parts of the world which are not West. It makes sense to give Russia multiple options. If we railroad Russia into a single option, then you are making it a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
With old structures on a path to revision, India is being seen as a co-creator and co-developer of technology.
India has today emerged as a trusted and a developing geography where people believe that yes, India is a good partner. From being a receiver of previous generation technology through TOT agreements, today India is viewed as a country which can be a co-creator of technology, which can be a co-developer of technology.
Prime Minister of Greece, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, recognized India's growing importance on the international stage.
When it comes to shaping the direction of the global debate and addressing the great challenges that we face, India is now often regarded, and rightly so, as a consensus builder and as a voice of reason in an increasingly polarized world. And by the way, Greece is supporting the reform of the Security Council of the United Nations in order for leading countries such as India to be represented at the highest table and in order for their voice to be heard.
As India seeks to be a stabilizing power rather than a disruptive one, important issues like climate change and digital transformation shaped the multilateral themes.
As the Raisina Dialogue came to an end on Friday, India's message to the world was clear, that it's ready to play the bridging role between various global divides of the North and the South, the East and the West. But Dr. Jaishankar's message to the West was, do not shut all doors on Russia, for that would prove to be counterproductive. With cameraman Alok Kumar Gupta and my colleague Jessica Taneja, this is Amrit Pal Singh for DD India in New Delhi.
In fact, here we have Amrit joining us live from outside the venue of Raisina Dialogue. Amrit, thank you very much. You've almost, in fact, attended all the sessions there. You were there yesterday and, in fact, today as well. To your mind, Amrit, what do you think has been the larger discourse when it comes to the messaging put forth by India, whether it is reforms in UN, and the points that External Affairs Minister spoke on China and Russia, we'll discuss a little later. But the conversation that India has been leading is we need the reforms at the UN. That's it.
That's right. As you know, Raisina Dialogue is a flagship geopolitics, geo-economics gathering that India organizes every year. This year at the Raisina Dialogue, they used the forum to underscore the need for urgent reforms. All 3 days, this was touched upon. Yesterday when the External Affairs Minister spoke, today when he spoke, he cited various examples and said that, how multilateralism has failed the world consistently. But that does not say that multilateralism is not needed. In fact, it is the need of the hour, but it has to be reformed. He was speaking yesterday saying that the UN started with 50 members. Today he said it reflects the realities of the colonial era, and if it can be expanded from 50 members to so many, so why can't 4 times if you've expanded, why can't you expand the Security Council? It does not reflect the realities of the present day. He said if G20 could be expanded and African Union could be brought in, BRICS could be expanded, why can't the United Nations, which is the by far the largest multilateral fora, and he said that if you do not do it, you will do it, that will happen at your own peril. He gave the example of smaller alliances being formed. So pushing for reformed multilateralism and the urgent need to expand the multilateral institutions, including the Security Council. Sakal.
Yes, Amrit, and if you could just also elaborate on the line when Minister Jaishankar talks about the mind games that would be played, but then there cannot be reforms without consensus.
On the mind games, he was talking about China. When he spoke about consensus, he said there is no consensus yet. How will you talk about the UN reforms? How will you affect the UN reforms? Though he underscored the urgent need for UN reforms, making it more broad-based and inclusive, but he said that if you go to the P5 and ask them, will you reform it? Why would they? He said it is anybody's guess. So therefore, the larger push has to come from outside, where at various fora like the Raisina Dialogue, like the G20, the world says that if the UN doesn't reform, it will become obsolete. And that is, he didn't use the word obsolete, but he was implying that, and he was saying that it has time and again failed. And therefore, he was making a strong case for reform. And in fact, on the question, he said, in fact, the other 4 powers of the P5 are at least amenable to that. And without naming China, right, he was he implied that it was that country which was blocking India's seat at the UN, at the permanent seat at the Security Council.
In fact, the growing chorus amongst other country representatives, especially those representing the global south. And in fact, just quoting the Greek Prime Minister when he categorically says that India's representation at the highest table, he was referring to the UNSC. If you could just give us a sense, other world leaders looking up to India.
The consensus that emerged, of course, the Greek Prime Minister said that he supports India's candidature. He said that day before also when at the inaugural session where the Prime Minister was sitting, Prime Minister Modi was sitting, he said that Greece endorses India's candidature. And the other countries have echoed similar sentiments. The issue here, really, the consensus that emerged here was that yes, there needs to be reform, but there was no clear-cut roadmap because this wasn't perhaps the forum on how this reform should be affected. The other thing was that everybody seemed to repose faith that they look at India unbiasedly.
Yes.
And Dr. Jaishankar, right from the Munich Security Conference to Raisina Dialogue, has been at pains at saying that, we have always advocated the way where you don't take sides, even on Russia when he spoke today. He said, don't shut the door on them.
Yes.
Saying that the consensus was that India could emerge as a bridging power between the various divides that exist. And and that could throw up the answers to the global the challenges the world faces today. Sakal.
All right. Thank you very much, Amritpal. We'll leave it there. Many thanks for joining us. Thank you.